The night was unusually still. One of those nights where even the wind seems hesitant to move, as if the world is waiting for something to happen. Arslan Malik stood at the gate of his newly purchased house, keys dangling loosely in his hand. He had driven 2 hours from the city, chasing peace and isolation, hoping a quieter environment would help him finish his documentary project. But as he stared at the house under the pale moonlight, he felt something tug inside his chest. The house looked awake, not old, not broken, just aware, like it knew he had arrived. He inhaled sharply and shook off the thought. "It's just a house," he muttered, stepping inside. The metallic click of the gate shutting behind him echoed a little too long. Inside, the air felt colder than it should have, not the normal kind of cold. No, this cold felt like it had weight, like it had been waiting. Arslan flicked on the lights. The living room illuminated in a soft yellow glow. Wooden floors, old-fashioned furniture left by the previous owner, a bookshelf with a few forgotten novels collecting dust. Everything looked harmless, almost welcoming till you walk through the corridor, checking each room one by one. The kitchen, normal. The guest room, empty. Storage room, locked. Room 3, also locked. He paused at room 3. The keyhole had dried paint around it, as if someone had sealed it once and then changed their mind. The doorknob was cold enough to sting his fingers. Later, he whispered he didn't know why he said that he didn't plan to open it, but something inside him felt like. The room heard him point 12:03 a.m. Arslan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, sleep refusing to come. The silence was thick, too thick. Then it started at a faint thump that he sat up instantly. Another thump, this time from the corridor that he stepped out of his room, phone flashlight in hand. The hallway stretched in front of him, shadows clinging to the walls like something alive. Thump. This time it sounded like something hitting the door of room 3 from inside. He stopped breathing for a second. No. He must have imagined it. Old houses make noises. Wood expands. Temperatures shift. Normal. But then, a long, slow drag of nails on wood. Coming directly from the other side of room 3's door, Arslan's skin tightened with goosebumps. He took a cautious step forward. His phone light trembled in his hand. The corridor seemed darker now, swallowing the light faster than it should. "Is someone inside?" he whispered without thinking. As if an answer. The doorknob of room 3 twitched. Once, twice. A slow, deliberate click. The door remained closed, but Arslan stepped back instantly. "Nope, not tonight," he breathed. He turned to walk back to his room, but froze, because at the end of the corridor, lit by moonlight spilling through a window, a woman was standing. White clothes, bare feet, head slightly tilted down. He blinked hard. She didn't disappear. She didn't move, just stood there, facing him, hair covering half her face. Arslan felt his throat dry up. His instincts screamed run, but fear pinned him where he stood. The woman slowly lifted her head. Her face was blurry, not hidden, not deformed, just wrong, like looking at a face underwater. She took a single step toward him. Arslan stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. He fumbled for the light switch on the wall. The lights flickered violently, and when they stabilized, she was gone. Only the empty corridor remained, but the cold stayed. And then he heard it. A whisper, very soft. Breath-like, right beside his ear. "Don't open that room." Arslan jerked away, stumbling backward until his shoulder hit the wall. His heart slammed against his ribs. The whisper wasn't from far away. It wasn't from the corridor. It was behind him. He spun around. Nothing, just darkness. He backed into his room, shut the door, and locked it twice, hands shaking, breath uneven, mind racing. What was that woman? Why was room 3 locked? And why did the previous owner say, "Live anywhere you want, just don't enter the 3rd room after midnight"? Arslan took a long, shaky breath. This house had secrets, and tonight, it had introduced its first one. 2:17 a.m. Arslan hadn't slept. He sat on the edge of his bed, fingers locked around his phone, replaying the last 30 minutes in his mind. The woman in white, the whisper behind his ear, room three's doorknob trembling like something inside wanted out. His heartbeat had calmed, but the fear hadn't. He needed answers. He grabbed a small flashlight. He didn't trust the house lights anymore and stepped cautiously into the corridor again. The air outside his room felt thicker now, almost heavy, like breathing. Inside a cold fog, the house was quiet, but not empty. Not anymore. The corridor Arslan walked slowly, each step echoing slightly. The shadows on the walls swayed. Even though there was no breeze, he approached room 3 again. The wooden door looked ordinary, too ordinary. As if pretending nothing had happened, that he crouched down, shining the flashlight at the keyhole. Something inside glinted. Metal? Glass? An eye. His breath hitched. No. It couldn't be. He leaned closer. A whisper leaked through the tiny gap. Soft, slender, female, but the words were clear. You came back. Arslan stumbled backward, dropping his flashlight. The beam spun across the floor, cutting through the darkness in chaotic circles. He froze. The voice wasn't calm. It wasn't angry. It was relieved. As if whoever, or whatever, was inside had been waiting for him. No, he whispered, shaking his head. This is not happening. He picked up the flashlight with trembling fingers. That's when he noticed something new. The paint near the handle was peeling. Fresh scratches he hadn't seen an hour ago, like fingernails had clawed outward from inside. He backed away again. But before he could turn, he heard footsteps behind him, soft, barefoot, approaching slowly. He didn't turn. He couldn't. The footsteps stopped right behind him, so close he could feel the air shift. The same whisper he heard earlier breathed into the side of his neck. Don't open that door, unless you want to end up like me. A shiver shot down his spine. He turned his head just a fraction. Nothing there, but the cold imprint of someone standing behind him remained. The living room. 2:32 a.m. Arslan rushed downstairs, almost tripping on the final step. He grabbed his laptop from the table and opened the folder where he kept the house documents. There had to be something. A clue. A warning. Anything. He scanned through the files until he found the sales agreement. On the last page, in faint ink, almost erased. Do not stay awake. After 2 a.m. in the west corridor, avoid room 3. And if you see her, do not speak to her. Arslan's stomach dropped. He had broken all 3 rules in the last hour. He stood up, pacing in circles. Okay, calm, think. He needed information. The previous owner left him one phone number scribbled on the back of the agreement. He dialed it. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. On the 4th call, someone picked up, not with a greeting, just breathing, slow, shaky breathing. Arslan swallowed. Hello? Who is this? The breathing got rougher, faster, desperate. Sir, I bought your house. I need to ask something about. He stopped, because the voice on the other end, raspy, broken, terrified, whispered. You saw her, didn't you? Arslan tightened his grip on the phone. What is she? Who is she? A long silence. Then the man spoke again, voice trembling. Whatever you do, if she talks to you again, don't answer her. Arslan's chest tightened. She already did. The man inhaled sharply, a sound of pure fear. Get out of the house. Now. Arslan stepped back toward the stairs, but before he could move, room 3's door upstairs slammed open. On its own, hard enough to shake the entire house. The man on the phone screamed, Don't look at her. The call cut. The house went silent, and from the dark corridor above, footsteps began walking toward the stairs, slow, steady, female. Arslan didn't remember running back to his room, but somehow he found himself standing inside it, door shut, chest rising and falling in quick, uneven breaths. He leaned against the wall, trying to get control of himself, but the house wouldn't let him. A faint sound drifted through the corridor again. Not footsteps, not scratching, breathing, slow, unsteady, as if someone was leaning against his door from the outside. Arslan stepped away from it, heart hammering. The breathing grew louder. Then a single knock, not loud, not aggressive, just deliberate. Talk that Arslan's pulse thundered. He didn't move, didn't breathe. That a second knock. Talk. And then a woman's voice murmured, soft and close. I know you're awake. Arslan stumbled backward until he hit the far wall. His knees trembled violently. I didn't speak to you, he whispered to himself, as if reassuring the air. I didn't respond. That means I'm safe, right? He didn't believe his own words. Not after last night. Not after the warning from the previous owner. He scanned the room for anything. Anything at all. To use as protection. Lamp? Useless. Chair? Maybe for a few seconds. Phone? He didn't even know who to call that he needed light. Something told him the darkness helped her, allowed her to exist. He grabbed the bedside lamp and flicked it on. The bulb lit for a second, flickered, died. The room went pitch black again, and the breathing outside the door stopped. Silence wrapped around him. A worse silence. A silence that felt intentional. Then the door handle turned, very slowly. Back and forth. Soft metal clicks in the quiet of the night. Arslan's entire body froze. That he wanted to scream, wanted to run, but the fear had taken hold of his legs like cold hands. The handle stilled. Then, through the thin crack under the door, a shadow shifted, as if someone was standing directly against it. The woman whispered again, but this time her voice was clearer. Closer. You open the house. Now open the room. Arslan shook his head in the darkness. No, no, no. The whisper slid through the door like a warm breath. Come to room 3. Every muscle in Arslan's body tensed. No, he whispered angrily. I'm not opening anything. And then, something knocked back, from inside his room. Behind him, right on the wall. Tok. Arslan spun around, flashlight trembling in his hand. Nothing. Just darkness. But the knock came again. This time higher up the wall. Then lower. Then in the opposite corner, as if something was crawling inside the walls, circling him. He backed toward the door, but stopped when another shadow slid under the gap. Not a foot. Not a hand. A face-shaped shadow, pressed flat against the floor as if trying to look. Inside. Arslan's breath caught in his throat. Then the voice behind the door whispered, You can't hide in that room forever. The shadow under the door shifted and retreated slowly. Quietly, as if she was walking away. Back toward room 3, the corridor fell silent again. But the silence didn't feel safe. It felt like an invitation. Arslan swallowed hard. He didn't want to open the door. Didn't want to step into the corridor. He didn't want to go anywhere near room 3. But something inside told him. The woman wasn't the only thing in that room. There was something else. Something she was warning him about. Or something she was protecting. He didn't know which was worse. He steadied his breath, hand trembling on the door locked. If he stayed here, she'd return. If he left, he'd be walking into the darkness she controlled. But he had no choice. Arslan unlocked the door. The click echoed unbearably loud. He took a slow breath and pulled it open. The corridor outside waited for him, silent, cold, watching, and the door of room 3 was wide open. Not half open, not cracked, fully opened as if inviting him inside. Arslan's throat tightened. His flashlight flickered once, and he stepped into the nightmare waiting in the hallway. Arslan stood at the threshold of room 3, the cold air spilling out like a living thing. His flashlight flickered in his trembling hand, the beam struggling against the darkness that felt heavier inside this room than anywhere else in the house. It wasn't just dark. It was dense, like the room had swallowed light for years and refused to give it back. He stepped forward. The wooden floor creaked, not from his weight, but from something beneath it shifting, unsettled by his presence. His stomach tightened. He scanned the room. The walls were different from the rest of the house. Gray, cracked, and covered in long vertical scratches, some deep enough to carve grooves into the wood. He moved the flashlight slowly. A chair in the corner, its legs broken, seat twisted like someone had fallen or been thrown. Onto it. A rope lay on the floor, frayed at one end. and on the opposite wall, something was written, not painted, not scratched, carved, deep, jagged words. She lied. He never left. Arslan's breath hitched. What did it mean? Who lied? Who never left? He took another careful step forward. Then he froze out. A crack ran along the center of the floorboards, and something beneath breathed out a slow inhale, a long exhale. The boards above it rose slightly, then settled. Arslan's heart hammered. There was something under the room, something alive. That he crouched slowly, shining the flashlight over the crack. Dust, dirt. No, it was black, wet, thick. That he reached out a hand, hesitating just inches from the crack, when the floor suddenly thumped upward, as if something struck it from below. Arslan stumbled backward, falling against the wall. The room went silent again, but not empty, not safe. And then, from behind him, a woman's voice. I told you not to come here. Arslan whipped around, flashlight trembling wildly. The woman in white stood in the corner, not approaching, not speaking again, just watching. Her face was clearer now, not blurry, not distorted, just wrong. Her eyes were too dark, too deep, like empty wells, her cheeks hollow, her clothing faded as if soaked in years of moonlight. Arslan pressed himself against the wall, breath rapid. What are you? What do you want from me? She didn't move, didn't blink. Finally, she whispered, I'm not here to hurt you, I'm here to stop him. Arslan's blood ran cold. Stop who? She lifted a trembling hand, pointing downward toward the cracked floor, the one she let in. Arslan's pulse thudded painfully in his ears. Who? He whispered. Her voice broke, shifting from warning to fear. My husband. The floorboards beneath them shuddered violently, a deep, heavy thud hitting from below, followed by another, stronger, closer, rising. The woman stepped back into the darkness of the corner, her voice trembling. He's waking up. You shouldn't have come in here. The floor split open, a long, jagged crack tearing across the room like a mouth opening. Cold air blasted upward. Arslan clutched the wall, flashlight shaking in his hand. From the darkness beneath the floor, two fingers appeared, long gray, bent in unnatural angles. They gripped the edge of the broken floorboards and began to pull. The woman whispered urgently, Run. Arslan didn't think, didn't breathe, didn't look back. That he bolted toward the door, but the house reacted instantly. Room 3's door slammed shut on its own, hard enough to rattle the frame. Arslan grabbed the handle desperately and twisted, locked. The crack in the floor widened. A deep growl reverberated through the room. Not human, not animal, something trapped for too long. Claws scraped the underside of the boards. Arslan pounded on the door. Let me out. Behind him, the woman whispered one final warning. Don't look at him. But the boards finally tore apart, and something beneath began pulling itself into the room. The crack split open with a sickening tear, wood snapping upward as if the floorboards were being peeled from below. Arslan backed against the locked door, breath choking in his throat. He didn't want to see, didn't want to look, but the sound forced his eyes down. A hand, if it could be called a hand, emerged from the darkness below the floor. Long fingers, jointed wrong, gray skin stretched thin across bone. It clawed upward. Then another hand appeared beside it, lower, heavier, dragging itself from a pit that smelled of damp earth and old, dying breath. The woman in white stood motionless in the corner, her trembling whisper barely audible. He's not human anymore. Arslan's heart pounded violently. He tried the door again. Locked, unmoving, cold as stone. He kicked it, shouldered it. Nothing. But a deep growl rose from the hole. Not a roar, not a scream. A sound so low and hollow it seemed to vibrate inside Arslan's ribs. The creature pulled itself higher. Arslan saw its head next. It wasn't shaped right. Too long, too narrow. Its hair hung in thin, brittle strands, matted with soil. And its face. He almost screamed. It was a face that once belonged to a man, but distorted as if crushed and reformed by something inhuman. Eyes sunken, jaw slightly dislocated, teeth exposed like shards of broken ceramic. It dragged itself fully onto the floor, limbs bending in angles no living thing should move. Arslan pressed harder against the door, whispering frantically, "Open, open, open." The woman suddenly stepped forward. Her tone changed, no longer warning, but command, "Close your eyes." Arslan shook his head violently. "I can't." I. The creature turned toward him, head twisting with a sickening crack, not turning like a human, but rotating all the way around before settling back in his direction. Its black, hollow eyes locked onto Arslan. The woman hissed, "Now." He squeezed his eyes shut, just as the creature lunged. The sound was a nightmare. Bones scraping wood, claws tearing the floor, breath rasping like dried leaves crushed together. Arslan felt the air shift, felt a cold presence inches from his face. Something hovered in front of him, sniffing, breathing, searching. The woman's whisper came from his left. "Don't look at him. He hates being seen." Arslan clenched his jaw, refusing to open his eyes. The creature's breath grew hotter on his cheek. Hot, but rotten, like a furnace inside a grave. Then a low, distorted voice crawled out of its throat. "I remember her scent on you." Arslan's blood froze. Her scent? Whose scent? The woman in white. The creature dragged one long claw across the floor, tracing the outline of Arslan's foot on his eye. Arslan flinched despite himself. The creature growled, a sharp rise in pitch, angered by the movement. The woman's voice shot across the room in panic. "Move." Arslan dropped to the left at the exact moment the creature swiped. The claws sliced through empty air where he had been standing a second earlier. He hit the ground hard, pain jolting up his arm. But the landing saved him. The creature roared and struck the door instead, wood splintering under the force. Cracks tore across it. One more hit, and the entire door would explode outward. The woman stepped between Arslan and the creature. Her form flickered, like candlelight in a storm. "Not him," she whispered. "You took me, not him." The creature lunged again and passed directly through her. She screamed, a sound so raw and broken it cut through Arslan's soul. Her form shattered like dust scattering in a violent wind. Arslan watched in horror as she dissolved, her presence vanishing entirely. The creature landed on its hands and knees, turned its hollow eyes back toward Arslan, then spoke in a voice like grinding stones. "You're alone now." It crawled toward him, limbs cracking, breath rattling. Its hand rose, claws ready to tear. Arslan rolled to the side desperately, fingers fumbling for something. Anything. On the floor, his hand brushed against metal, a rusted key. The same key that belonged to room 3. That he grabbed it. Without thinking, pure survival instinct, he lunged at the door and jammed the key into the lock. The creature let out a furious, echoing roar. Arslan twisted the key. Click. The door swung open, and he hurled himself out of the room. The door slammed behind him on its own. Just as the creature reached it, the wood buckled violently from the inside. Thud, thud, thud. Then silence. Arslan stumbled backward into the corridor, gasping for air. The house had gone quiet, but not safe. Never safe. The night pressed against the abandoned textile mill like a living beast, silent, watching, waiting. A cool wind slid through broken windows, carrying the smell of rust, dust, and something faintly metallic, almost like dried blood. Detective Mira stepped inside, her torch slicing the darkness. The beam trembled slightly, nothing obvious, but enough to betray what she wouldn't admit. She was scared. Alex followed a few steps behind, breathing sharply. "This is where the call traced to?" he whispered, clutching his phone. Mira nodded. "Blocked number. Same voice message. Same distortion. Same phrase. You are close. Too close." Alex's throat tightened. "So he's watching us. Or he wants us to think he is." Mira replied, sweeping her light across the floor. Stay alert. Every footstep echoed like a gunshot. The massive mill was a skeleton. Long dead machines, collapsed beams, graffiti sprawled across walls left by people who had no idea the building now sat at the center of a killer's game at the far end. A giant loom towered above them, its gears locked in eternal stillness. Something small swung from its frame, glinting when the flashlight hit. Mira stepped closer at a pendant that a silver one that with tiny initials scratched on the back. L.K. Alex froze. That's Lily's, his sister. Missing for 7 years. Officially declared dead. The reason he worked with Mira. The reason he would never stop. His knees nearly buckled. Mira swallowed hard. He's ripping open your wounds, Alex. This is targeted. He didn't speak. Couldn't. His fingers gently touched the pendant, the metal still warm, as if someone had placed it there moments ago. Then, a faint thump from the upper floor. Both of them turned instantly. Mira raised her gun. Someone's here, Alex whispered, Lily. They moved slowly, climbing the metal staircase that trembled under their weight. The air grew colder. A shadow flashed across the corridor, quick, small, deliberate. Mira aimed her flashlight. Stop. Police. A figure darted behind a doorway. Alex rushed forward despite Mira's warning. Wait. Don't. He reached the doorway first. Inside was a long hallway lit only by the moonlight pouring through shattered glass. At the end of it stood a woman. Thin. Dressed in a white hospital gown. Barefoot. Hair covering her face. Breathing softly. Shaking slightly to Alex's heart stopped. Lily? Her head lifted slowly, but before he could see her face, the lights exploded on, harsh, blinding, industrial lights. The hallway was suddenly empty. The woman was gone. Just gone. Mira grabbed his arm. Alex, back up. He's playing tricks. This whole place is wired. Then a loud crackling sound filled the mill. Old speakers. Hidden somewhere in the walls that a distorted voice whispered. You shouldn't have followed the echo. But now that you have, let's see how far you're willing to go. Alex shouted at the ceiling. Where is SHE? The voice laughed, slow, electronic, mocking. Behind every truth lies a truth you never wanted. Come find it. Act 7 begins. The speakers shut off. Silence swallowed everything. Mira exhaled shakily. It's a trap. He wants to break you first. Alex's hands balled into fists. No, I'm done being afraid. We continue. No matter what. Mira stared at him and saw something new in his eyes. Not fear, not hope, but fire. The mill had grown colder as if the walls themselves were breathing against Mira and Alex. Shattered windows rattled softly with the night wind, creating eerie echoes that seemed almost alive. Every corner, every steel beam, held the possibility of movement, of someone or something watching. Alex tightened his grip on the pendant in his hand. It's her. I know it's her. He whispered, jaw clenched. Mira shook her head. We don't know that. Could be a trap, Alex. Could be anything. Stay sharp. They moved cautiously, flashlight beams cutting slices through the darkness. The previous distorted voice had stopped, but the echo of it lingered in Alex's mind. Behind every truth lies a truth you never wanted. Every step they took sent the old metal stairs groaning beneath them. The further they went, the more the air thickened, carrying a metallic scent, blood, rust, or both. Alex didn't care. He followed instinct, adrenaline pumping harder than fear. The upper hallway they reached the upper corridor. Long, narrow, lined with broken doors. Each door seemed to breathe. The shadows beneath them shifted unnaturally. A soft click echoed. Mira spun around. Nothing. Then, another click. Then another. The doors were opening on their own. Alex froze. She's guiding us, or leading us into a trap. Mira whispered sharply, don't split up. A faint sound of bare feet on broken tiles, slow, deliberate, coming from the far end of the corridor that Alex's heart raced. There. A flicker of white at the end of the hallway. The same woman, or someone wearing white, stood there, motionless. Her hair obscured her face, but the pendant glinted in the dim light. Mira leveled her flashlight at her. Step forward. Now, the figure didn't move. Instead, the air itself seemed to ripple around her. Then, almost imperceptibly, the figure began gliding toward them. No footsteps, no sound, just movement. Alex's throat tightened. Lily, the figure stopped suddenly, head tilted upward, then whispered, a voice Alex recognized instantly. Soft, trembling, terrified. Follow, quickly. Don't stop. Before Mira could protest, the figure turned and moved down a narrow, shadow-filled passage leading to the mill's basement. Mira hissed, Alex. Wait. He ran after her. The basement, the stairs creaked violently as they descended. The air was thick and suffocating. A metallic, coppery smell filled their noses. Every instinct screamed danger. To the bottom. The flashlight revealed a large, open space. Old machinery, broken conveyor belts, scattered chains, and a deep pit in the center of the floor. The figure stopped at the edge of the pit. Her hand pointed downward. Alex leaned closer, peering over the edge. Shadows moved far. Below, figures, twisted, half hidden in darkness, watching, waiting. Mira grabbed his shoulder. Alex, whatever this is bigger than us. The figure whispered again, he's here. He's awake, and he knows you're coming. A deep, resonating growl echoed from below. Then, from the darkness, a pair of glowing eyes emerged. Two eyes. Red, piercing, focused directly on them. The figure stepped back. Run! But it was too late. From the pit, a massive shadow leapt upward, muscles writhing, twisted and unnatural. The growl became a roar that shook the floor. Alex barely had time to pull Mira behind him as the creature crashed against the chains, snapping metal like paper. The figure in white turned, shouted, Go! Now! And in that instant, the hunt began. The creature was fast, too fast. Its long, bent limbs tore across the basement floor. Every shadow seemed to stretch, reaching for them. Alex and Mira sprinted toward the exit stairs. Every heartbeat felt like a drum. Every breath burned. Behind them, the creature roared again. Closer, hungrier, faster. Alex glanced back once. The figure in white had vanished. Only the darkness remained. And the thing hunting them. Alex and Mira burst up the basement stairs, gasping for air, hearts hammering like war drums. The creature's roar reverberated behind them, metal chains snapping as it surged forward, faster than any human or animal should move. The mill's corridors twisted endlessly in the darkness, turning into a maze of shadows and broken floors. Every corner, every steel beam, seemed designed to trap them. Alex held the pendant tightly. Its warmth was almost a reassurance. Almost, but he knew it wasn't a guarantee. Not here, Mira whispered, voice taut with fear. Keep moving. Don't stop. They rounded a corner and froze at the far end of the corridor. A room. Its doors slightly ajar. A single light flickered inside. Alex's gut told him to go in. Mira's gut told her something worse waited inside. The voice in Alex's mind echoed faintly, the same whisper from the distorted call. Behind every truth lies a truth you never wanted. He ignored it. They ran toward the door. Inside was a small office, dusty and cramped, papers scattered everywhere. On the desk, an old recording device blinked. The tape inside was still rolling. Alex pressed play. A distorted voice played, chillingly familiar. I see you've found my house. I see you've followed the whispers. Every step brings you closer to the truth. But are you ready to face what lurks below? Before Mira could react, the office door slammed shut behind them, locked. No key, no handle, just solid metal. Then the creature struck the door from outside, slamming it violently. Alex and Mira were thrown against the desk, papers flying. The pendant in Alex's hand pulsed, a warm, almost alive sensation that a soft glow emanated from it, illuminating a hidden message carved into the wall behind the desk. The one you seek is a trap. They wait behind the final door. Alex whispered, voice shaking. Final door? What does that mean? Mira scanned the room that an old filing cabinet leaned against the wall. A single drawer slightly open. Inside, blueprints, the floor plans of the mill, and at the bottom, a spiral staircase leading somewhere deeper. Before they could react, the lights flickered violently, and the office door shook again. The growl was closer now, vibrating through the walls. The creature had learned to hunt smarter. It knew where they were, and it was waiting for them to make a mistake. Alex grabbed Myra's hand. Spiral stairs. That's the only way. Together, they pushed the filing cabinet aside and descended into the unknown. The stairs spiraled downward, darkness swallowing them whole, every step creaking ominously to the bottom. They emerged into a cavernous room. The walls were carved with scratches, marks of struggles past. The air was thick, metallic, and heavy with anticipation. In the center, a massive door, iron-bound, engraved with strange symbols. Alex swallowed. This must be the final door. Mira nodded, trembling. And whatever's behind it is what all of this has been leading to. From the shadows behind them, a whisper, "Open it, if you dare." The creature's roar echoed somewhere above, closer than before. Time was running out. Alex reached for the heavy iron handle. Mira braced herself. Together, they pushed. The door groaned, slowly swinging open, and a blinding light burst forth, swallowing the corridor, the stairs, and everything around them. The blinding light poured over Alex and Mira as they stepped through the iron door. Their eyes struggled to adjust, the brilliance almost painful. When the glow subsided enough to see, they found themselves in a room unlike any other part of the mill. It was vast, cavernous, walls lined with mirrors, all cracked, fractured, reflecting countless distorted images of themselves. The air vibrated with whispers, hundreds of voices overlapping, echoing endlessly. Alex's hand tightened around the pendant. It pulsed strongly, almost like it had a heartbeat of its own. Then he saw her, standing at the center of the mirrored room, the woman in white. But this time, her face was clear, eyes wide, terrified, and behind her, a shadow that shifted, monstrous, enormous. Mira gasped. "Alex, that's not human." The shadow moved independently from her. It stretched across the room, limbs bending impossibly. The deep growl rumbled through the floor. The woman whispered softly, "He's not her. He's never been human. And he knows your fear. He feeds on it." Alex took a step forward. "Who is he? What is he?" The woman looked at him, eyes wet with pain. "He was once a man. He wanted power over death. He made a deal, and now he is trapped between worlds, consuming the living to escape. The mill, this room, it's his prison, and he waits for anyone who finds the truth." The shadow shifted closer, moving faster than possible. It reached toward them. Alex felt a pull toward fear itself, his memories, his worst regrets pressing in. The pendant flared brightly in his hand. The woman raised her arms. "You must face him without looking at him. Fear gives him life. Only then can you survive." Mira blinked. "Without looking? Without seeing him?" The woman's voice cracked. "Close your eyes and trust the pendant." Alex and Mira exchanged a tense glance. Then, as the shadow lunged, they obeyed, eyes closed, hearts pounding, the roar of the shadow deafening. The pendant burned hot in Alex's hand, a steady, pulsing rhythm that he raised it forward. And suddenly, the shadow recoiled, screamed, a sound that tore through the mirrors, shattering reflections in waves. The woman whispered urgently, "Keep walking. Do not stop. Do not open your eyes." Step by step, they moved toward a smaller door at the far end. The shadow clawed at the floor, at the walls, reaching for them, but it could not cross the light of the pendant. Finally, Alex reached the small door. He turned the knob with shaking hands. The room beyond was quiet, safe, and outside, dawn began to touch the world, spilling natural light through cracks in the mill. They stumbled out of the mill into the first fragile morning light. The pendant's warmth faded. The woman in white was gone. Alex breathed, looking at Mira. Is it over? She shook her head. I don't know, but he's trapped for now. Alex looked down at the pendant, now still in his hand. A faint pulse remained, like a heartbeat waiting to be swallowed. The truth was out, but some things never truly die. The sun rose slowly over the abandoned mill, painting the cracked walls in pale gold. Alex and Mira stumbled into the open yard, the fresh morning air heavy with the scent of wet earth and rust. The mill was silent now, too silent. The pendant in Alex's hand had cooled, but its faint pulse reminded him that some power still lingered, waiting. They didn't speak at first. Words felt useless after everything they had faced. The memory of the shadow, the clawing, the voices, and the whispers pressed in like a weight on their chests. Finally, Mira broke the silence. Do you think it's really gone? Alex turned the pendant in his hand, feeling its subtle vibration. I don't know, he admitted. It's trapped, for now, but something tells me it's not finished. They began walking away from the mill, each step hesitant, each shadow along the trees seeming to reach toward them. Then, Alex stopped. His eyes fell on a small mirror leaning against the mill's exterior wall. He glanced at his reflection and froze. Behind him, reflected in the glass, a figure stood, white, barefoot, hair hanging over its face. Alex spun around. Nothing. He turned back to the mirror. The figure remained. A whisper came from nowhere, yet everywhere. You survived for now, but the truth follows. Always. Alex's heart pounded. Mira grabbed his arm. What is it? He swallowed, voice trembling. The truth never leaves you, and neither do they. The figure in the mirror smiled, or at least something resembling a smile. Then slowly, impossibly, lifted one pale hand and waved. Alex and Mira didn't move. The world around them seemed to hold its breath. Then the mirror cracked, not just a single line, but a web of fractures spreading like lightning. The reflection disappeared. The pendant pulsed one last time in Alex's hand. And then, silence. The wind picked up. Birds began to chirp. The sun climbed higher. But the feeling remained that whatever haunted the mill, whatever consumed fear and waited in the shadows, was still there. Watching, waiting for the next truth seeker to come. Alex looked at Mira. Some stories never really end. She nodded slowly, eyes wide with fear and awe. And together, they walked away from the mill, leaving the final secret buried in the shadows. For now, the camera of the mind would never forget. The pendant pulsed faintly one last time. A heartbeat in the dark, and the mill remained, silent, alive, waiting. The Yendi.